At the core of the future of health is radically interoperable data, with timely and relevant data flowing between consumers, healthcare incumbents, and new entrants. But this will require cooperation from the entire industry, including hospitals, physicians, health plans, technology companies, medical device companies, pharma companies, and consumers. How can the industry start shifting away from today's silos to reach this connected future? This is Tales of Transformation. At a recent conference, I sat down with Mike DeLone to continue our conversations on interoperability, but this time focused on life sciences organizations. Mike is a principal in Deloitte Consulting LLP and leads Deloitte's U.S. life sciences practice. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, Heidi. It's great to be here.
So let's start by giving us an overview of where you see life sciences companies as it relates to interoperability.
That's a great question. You started talking about how do you define interoperability? So we look out in the future 21 years, but I'm actually talking about today. It's important to point out that we're talking not just about data, but about architecture, about process, and that's internal and external processes all working together across all employees. So from every single function to all suppliers, to payers, to regulators, to customers, which include patients, HCPs, and caregivers, and across things like wearables, sensors, smart pills, devices, and things like that. So from a factual perspective, out in the market with the life sciences clients that I'm meeting with, I've not seen a single organization or leader at an executive level who doesn't believe that the notion of interoperability is truly fundamental to what they're trying to accomplish as an organization going forward.
So, Mike, knowing that at the executive leadership level, this notion of interoperability is truly fundamental, what are some of the biggest challenges that remain for life sciences companies?
We did some studies and found that over half the organizations are feeling quite good about interoperability and investing in these capabilities. And I think of things for interoperability like design for reuse and APIs first and microservices and industry standards and security by design as basic fundamental technology components that would allow for interoperability. We look at organizations based on a continuum of where they are in terms of a current state. So for example, basic, are they just starting? Are they opportunistic? They're taking opportunities for new work to increase interoperability. Have they truly adopted interoperability as a framework and a way of working? And or are they mature? And I have seen none of that. The biggest challenges around privacy, data standards, disparate data sources and software, significant amounts of dollars that are required. So we talk about interoperability, there's total disruption happening in the industry, and it's around new science and new regulations and new players and new therapies and new pricing and new manufacturing and struggling R&D. So the gap is, how do you focus with literally thousands of different activities going on? How do you focus on what really needs to get done? Jeff Bezos, back in 2002 or 3, I don't remember, made a mandate for Amazon at the time, basically saying that all teams are going to expose their data and their functions through services. He was talking about APIs, which are the foundation of the entire organization. And he went on to say that is the only way that you will communicate from technologies. He was making a point around a level of governance that is required to really look into the future about the notion of interoperability. And that cut through the fact that even at that time, his organization was doing so much and had hundreds of, if not thousands of activities going on. And while we see a level of governance and mandate that's starting in life sciences organizations, I have not seen it to that extent. And I'm not sure it would be healthy at this point in time. But at the end of the day, those are some of the gaps. It's very complex. Governance is very, very difficult, and it's not what these organizations typically do well. Harmonizing processes is very difficult because you can do radically interoperable everything, but when do you use it? Are the processes in place to make sure that the radically interoperable information actually is brought to bear at a time that matters? There's billions and billions of dollars spent on legacy systems. The life sciences industry, we're still struggling. These are niche business, functional, and technical challenges and talents and capabilities that are in scarce supply.
What 3 areas do you expect interoperability to have the biggest impact in biopharma companies?
Radical interoperability is creating a platform for truly paradigms for collaborative research the notion around R&D and more effective and efficient clinical trials, sharing through FHIR standards, which is an HL7 standard, sharing information back and forth to help with recruitment, eliminating manual data entry. Medication adherence is another one. The more that we know about a patient and the more that they're willing to share and the more information we can actually help to influence a patient can help with adherence, which is fundamental to the future of health. And then from a commercial perspective, I would point out the notion of outcomes-based contracting through leveraging real-world evidence, which obviously comes from information that needs to be radically interoperable in order to really influence what the definition of value is, to influence how we pay and reimburse for medicines going forward.
So how will radical interoperability impact products and services that medtech companies provide?
So I believe that medtech has at least, if not more, to gain from the notion of radical interoperability, the way that I was defining it earlier, than any other player. At the end of the day, and I'm just making this human, medtech is about a sensor, an implantable, something that is most likely touching a human body. And very personally, and I can speak for my family and probably anybody else I know, patients want to know what's happening in and on their body. And that notion basically suggests that any information that can be provided with any sensor, any medical device that is interacting with a human, that the information coming from that needs to be available, and ultimately not just the organization to benefit, to make better decisions, but also to the patient. And I believe that medical devices of the future, we talked about it at one point saying 20 years, we believe that the manufacturing of a medical device will be even more commoditized than it is today, which leaves us to the suggestion that those organizations that are best able to take the information that is derived from those sensors and implantables and other devices and leveraging them, whether it's for glucose meters and monitors, insulin pumps, pacemakers, defibrillators, so on and so forth. The more that you can leverage the information, the better. And I believe that that's going to really differentiate medical technology for the future.
So how are organizations outside of the industry helping to advance interoperability, and how is that affecting life science organizations?
It's hard to talk about organizations outside of the industry anymore, but what I struggle with is who's outside of healthcare anymore. So we talk about the future of health, but it's the future of health and wealth and work. I think there's very few organizations now that aren't in healthcare. Now, that doesn't mean they're in life sciences. Small niche software companies that we've never heard of that are working to do software as a medical device without the legacy processes and barriers, and they're as excited about what the future looks like as you are, and they have an idea. And it's just amazing what they're doing. You talk about telecommunications. There's just so much to be gained by the infinite information that is coming from organizations across industries and being leveraged to understand patients better, to make better medical decisions. So it's a hard answer for me because I have a hard time saying who's not in our business anymore.
As we close out this season, any last advice to give organizations on how they can be leaders in interoperability?
I would say define what good looks like. And this is kind of old school consulting in a way, but where are you in terms of that continuum, in terms of data, processes, applications, and architecture? Kind of evaluate the ecosystem, what matters to you internally and externally, who are the stakeholders? Look in the mirror and get agreement on what does value look like? What does good look like? Get a sense of a vision. Where do you want to go? You don't have to have the whole roadmap or the map to get you there, but you should have a sense. It says in 5 to 7 years or 10 years, what is not negotiable? Where do we need to be? And then understand where you are today, because only then can you understand the difference between here and where we want to go.
I want to thank Mike Delone for discussing how organizations can reach this connected future. Thanks for tuning in to this season of Tales of Transformation as we explored all things interoperable. Until next time.